if you don't make the time to work on creating the life you want, you're eventually going to be forced to spend a lot of time dealing with a life you don't want. Kevin and Go. There is a silent paradox operating in life that many only realize when they are halfway through. If you do not take the time to build the life you want, you will have to spend even more time dealing with a life you do not want. Every passing day is an investment, either in what we actively choose or in the consequences of our procrastination. Think of a garden. If you don't sow seeds, prune, or shape it, weeds will sprout up uninvited. They do not ask for your permission. They only need your silence and delay to take over the entire space. And eventually, you are no longer gardening. You are just fighting the overgrowth that you yourself once neglected. We put off learning a skill out of exhaustion, avoid a tough decision for fear of making a mistake, or prolong a bad habit because it brings instant comfort. But the brain does not register procrastination as a neutral state. It records it as a debt. And this debt always comes with interest in the form of pressure, scarcity, and opportunities slowly slipping away. Life does not punish you immediately. It merely accumulates the consequences. And it is the delayed nature of these consequences that misleads us into thinking we are still in control. Until one day, the things we delayed are no longer scattered, but crystallize into a wall, blocking the path of the life we wish to lead. In the same amount of time, someone uses it to build a foundation, while another uses it to repair the wreckage. One creates structure, the other reacts to chaos. The difference lies not in circumstances, but in the moment of decision, right when we are still early enough to choose our direction. Life, after all, does not demand perfection from you. It only asks that you do not stand outside the process of creating yourself. Because if you don't actively write your own story, life will write it for you. But there is no guarantee it will be a story you want to read. Always work hard and have fun in what you do, because I think that's when you're more successful. You have to choose to do it. Simone Biles. Human beings cannot sustain perseverance through pressure or obligation alone. Any effort detached from a sense of meaning will sooner or later become a burden. And when something becomes a burden, it begins to consume the very person carrying it. Humans are designed to seek rewards, not necessarily money or outcomes, but sometimes simply the feeling of progress, the sense that we are living in the right direction. When you have fun in what you do, you are triggering a deeper mechanism, intrinsic engagement. At that point, work is no longer something you have to do, but something you want to do. It is like climbing a mountain. If you only think about the summit, every step becomes an endurance test. But if you pay attention to the air, the scenery, your breath, and how you change along the trail, the journey takes on a completely different hue. Success, then, is found not only at the destination, but within the very experience of the process. No one can decide your attitude toward life for you. No one can create joy in your work for you. The world merely provides the circumstances, and how you interpret them is where your destiny is shaped. In the exact same job, one person burns out while another grows. One is drowned while another rises. The difference does not lie in the nature of the work, but in the internal choice made when facing it. When you put in the effort and manage to find meaning in it, you no longer have to battle yourself every day. You begin to collaborate with yourself. Success doesn't start by doing more. It starts by choosing the right way to live with what you are doing. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is a stepping stone to success. Sundar Pichai, we label everything as right or wrong, win or lose, success or failure. This perspective creates a sense of clarity, but it distorts the true nature of the growth process. Because in real life, failure does not stand opposite success like two opposing front lines. It flows within the same stream, like the inevitable bends of a river, finding its way to the sea. If success makes us believe we are on the right path, failure forces us to ask, right by what standard? And is that standard still relevant? Consider someone learning to ride a bike. The falls are not a negation of knowing how to ride. They are the exact process through which the brain learns balance. If you eliminate the falls, you simultaneously eliminate the ability to master the skill. In this sense, failure is not the wrong part of the journey, but the mandatory data required for the body and mind to evolve. It's how humans interpret failure. Some see it as a dead end, while others see it as feedback. Facing the same event, one side shuts down the ability to act, while the other opens up the ability to adjust. And it is this difference in interpretation that creates two completely distinct life trajectories. When everything goes smoothly, it is easy to believe we control the entire system. But it only takes one stumble to realize there are factors beyond our prediction, and that very humility is the true foundation of genuine growth. Calling failure a stepping stone is not a way of sugarcoating reality, but a more accurate view of the structure of the learning process. Without a stepping stone, a person cannot elevate themselves to a higher level. But if you only fall and never stand back up, that stepping stone leads nowhere. Whether failure is good or bad lies in the fact that it is never an endpoint, but a state of transition. And in that transition, one learns whether to keep going or to pause. The difference does not lie in the fall, but in how we respond to it. Success isn't about the end result. It's about what you learn along the way. Vera Wang, we believe happiness will appear once we hit a certain milestone, graduating, getting a stable job, earning a lot of money, or being recognized. But upon reaching those milestones, our nervous system quickly adapts. The joy doesn't last as long as we expected. And then a new goal appears, pushing us to keep running forward. If success is solely defined by the end result, humans will forever exist in a state of not enough. But if we shift the focus to the lessons along the way, the entire architecture of meaning changes. At that point, every experience, even the mistakes, becomes a part of success. Imagine a class with no final exam. If we only focus on the final grade, we live in pressure and anxiety. But if we view every assignment, every error, and every correction as part of learning, the learning process itself becomes the reward. Success at this stage is no longer about achieving, but about becoming. With every stumble, every adjustment, and every realization of what went wrong, the nervous system is restructuring its understanding of the world. These lessons cannot be replaced by the final outcome, because the outcome is merely a static point, while the lesson is a continuous stream of awareness. There are those who reach their goals, but remain unchanged inside. They pass through the journey like someone asleep on a train. Conversely, there are those who haven't reached the destination by societal standards, yet they constantly evolve in their mindset, emotions, and resilience. By a deeper definition, the latter is more successful, for they are expanding their very capacity to live. If we only look at the outcome, we judge a person based on a single moment. But if we look at the lessons, we judge a person through their entire process of becoming. And human beings, by nature, are not a single moment, but a continuous stream of development. The goal is just a point of reference. The lesson is what transforms a person into a new version of themselves. Without the lessons, success is nothing more than an empty title. But when lessons are accumulated, even failures become a part of an unfolding success. You are not just traveling toward success. You are being shaped by the very road you walk. We are products of our past, but we don't have to be prisoners of it. Rick Warren. We are not born as absolute blank slates. We are molded by memories, environments, traumas, education, the times we were loved, and the times we were abandoned. The past does not disappear. It settles like sediment within the structure of our thoughts and reactions today. Don't have to be prisoners of it. The past tends to operate like a background operating system. It automatically triggers familiar reactions. The fear of rejection, if we have been hurt, self-doubt, if we have failed many times, or over-controlling behavior, if we have experienced loss. Without awareness, a person will live as if replaying old scripts in new settings, believing they are freely choosing, when in fact, they are merely reacting to old programming. However, awareness is exactly what breaks that cycle. When we are conscious enough to observe our own reactions, a small space opens up between the stimulus and the response. It is within that very space that freedom begins to form. Not absolute freedom, but the ability to no longer be blindly dragged along by what has happened. The past is like a river that has flowed by. It leaves behind sediments, alters the landscape, and carves out trails. But we are not forced to walk those trails forever. We can recognize them, step out of them, or even build a brand new road, cutting right across them. This does not erase the past, but it changes our relationship with it. What usually keeps people stuck is not the past itself, but how we identify ourselves with it. When someone says, "I am a failure," "I'm always like this," or "I can't change," they are turning a series of past events into a fixed identity. And once an identity is fixed, future behaviors are consequently limited. But a human being is not a fixed point. A human being is a process, and a process always has the potential to redirect. Maturing, in its deepest sense, is the act of detaching oneself from the old definitions imposed by the past to finally see. We used to be that way, but we are not obligated to stay that way forever. It is not about denying the past's influence, nor romantically simplifying the act of letting go. It simply poses a fundamental choice. Will we live as a passive consequence of what has happened, or as an active author continuing the story from what we have endured? And perhaps true freedom does not lie in having no past, but in no longer letting the past entirely dictate our future. You can waste your lives drawing lines, or you can live your life crossing them. Shonda Rhimes. Lines are not just external rules. They are often invisible boundaries drawn by habit, fear, prejudice, societal expectations, and even the conclusions we've drawn from our past. Initially, they might appear as tools to keep us safe, ordered, and directed. But over time, if left unrecognized, they turn into a cage that we mistake for a map. Drawing lines is a deeply common psychological behavior. Humans tend to seek certainty. We like knowing what is right and what is wrong, what we should and should not do. This clarity brings a temporary sense of security, but the cost is the gradual shrinking of our capacity to live. When everything is categorized, a person begins to inhabit a world much smaller than reality. Imagine someone standing before a vast plot of land. Instead of building, they spend all their time drawing boundaries. This is the safe zone. That is the danger zone. I am not allowed here. I am not capable of reaching there. They are so busy defining the limits that they forget the original purpose of the land was to live on, to create, and to experience. And then, one day, they realize they have spent their whole life describing life instead of actually living it. Lines are also fixed beliefs about ourselves. I'm not good at this. I'm not that kind of person. I always fail at that. These statements might initially form from a few specific experiences, but repeated long enough, they become cognitive structures. And once perception is framed, behavior automatically follows that frame, creating a self-reinforcing loop. Conversely, crossing the lines is not an act of blind rebellion, but a process of shattering outdated cognitive limits. It is the moment one dares to ask, is this truly a limit, or just something I've grown accustomed to believing? This very question cracks open the belief structure, and within that crack, new possibilities begin to emerge. Crossing the line is when a person dares to try something they once thought impossible, not because they are guaranteed to succeed, but because they no longer believe failure will define their entire being. It is the shift from a psychology of self-defense to one of self-expansion. One lives to avoid being wrong. The other lives to discover what is right. The more lines we draw to control life, the more trapped we feel within it. And the more we dare to cross those lines, the more we feel the vastness of human potential. Freedom, therefore, is not the absence of boundaries, but the ability to discern which limits are real and which are mere products of fear. We either live as managers of the borders we created, or we live as explorers of what happens when we step beyond them. Accept responsibility for your life. Know that it is you who will get you where you want to go, no one else. Les Brown. When things go wrong, it is easy to find an external cause to ease our anxiety. An unfavorable environment, lack of support, or missed opportunities. This mechanism temporarily protects our self-esteem, but in the long run, it strips away our power to change. Because if the cause always lies outside of us, the solution will forever remain out of reach. Conversely, accepting responsibility does not mean taking extreme self-blame, but acknowledging a fundamental truth. In every circumstance, there is always a part we can influence. It could be our reaction, our next choice, or the direction we decide to maintain. That small but tangible piece is the starting point of all change. Life is like a boat in the middle of the ocean. The weather may change, the waves may be fierce or calm, and the currents may be with or against us. But the boat does not lose its purpose because of it. The helm is still right there, and the captain cannot blame the sea if the ship sails off course for too long. The sea can affect the journey, but it cannot replace the act of steering. When a person takes responsibility, they simultaneously reclaim their power. Responsibility and power always go hand in hand. If you claim no responsibility, you will no longer feel capable of changing anything. But when you admit, I was a participant in this outcome, you also open the door to, I can do things differently from here. This does not advocate for absolute control or the illusion that humans can dictate everything. It is much more pragmatic. In an imperfect world, the only thing you truly own is how you choose to participate in it. And that very participation gradually shapes the direction of your life. Many wait for an external change to start living differently. Change truly begins when you stop waiting and start taking responsibility. Not taking responsibility for everything that happens, but for how you choose to face everything that happens. As long as a person blames, they are still standing in the position of reaction. But when they take responsibility, they shift into the position of action. And only from that position can one truly start moving toward where they want to go, instead of being dragged away by circumstance. Once we believe in ourselves, we can risk curiosity, wonder, spontaneous delight, or any experience that reveals the human spirit. Cummings. Believing in oneself is not the delusion that we are always right, but a foundational sense that no matter what happens, we have the capacity to face it and adapt. It is this very feeling that opens the door for life to become broader, deeper, and more authentic. The fear of making mistakes often makes us shrink our experiences. We choose safe options, familiar paths, and predictable decisions. Gradually, life becomes efficient but impoverished, stable but devoid of vibration. At that point, one is not truly living, but merely operating within a comfort zone designed more to avoid pain than to create meaning. Belief in oneself is not superficial confidence. It is the internal permission to expand. It is like shedding the layers of armor we have worn to protect ourselves. When the armor gets too thick, we can no longer feel the wind, the light, or the subtle movements of life. But when we dare to loosen it, the world instantly becomes more vibrant, even if it simultaneously ceases to be entirely safe. Curiosity is not simply a desire to explore, but a highly primal psychological capacity. The ability to step into the unknown without a guaranteed outcome. It stands in direct opposition to the need for control. The more a person lacks belief in themselves, the more they need to control everything around them. Conversely, when inner belief is strong enough, we can accept uncertainty as a natural part of life. Wonder and spontaneous delight are states that only emerge when we stop trying to fixate our experiences. A mind constantly seeking to predict will rarely be truly amazed. A meticulously planned life will rarely hold vivid, unexpected moments. Yet, it is within those very unprepared moments that people often feel most alive, daring to let life touch you directly. Because every experience, pleasant or painful, is a way for the human spirit to be revealed. That is the deepest, most authentic, undefined part of us. But for that to happen, one must be willing to step out of the ego's overprotection. The more we trust ourselves, the less we need to prove ourselves. And when we are no longer obsessed with being right, being excellent, or being safe, we finally have the space to try, to fail, to feel, and to live more wholly. Build an inner belief strong enough so you no longer have to shrink back from life. Then, life will no longer be a test to pass, but a space to explore, where every experience, no matter how small, can become a door opening up to your true self. It is never too late to be what you might have been. George Eliot. A version that could have been formed if we had chosen differently, lived differently, been braver, more disciplined, or more persistent at a certain point in time. We often live with a dual-time ego. On one hand, who we are now, and on the other, the imagined image of who we might have been. And it is the gap between these two images that creates a sense of profound regret. We look to the past and give it the power to define our future, as if what we failed to do will forever serve as proof of what can no longer be done. Time does not close the door on the possibility of becoming. It merely changes the path we must take to get there. It is never too late, not because time is limitless, but because humans are not as fixed by their past as we usually think. The human brain possesses neuroplasticity, meaning it has the ability to relearn, adapt, and rewire itself, even after years of ingrained habits. This turns the person we used to be into mere data, rather than a life sentence. The person you might have been is not actually a fixed entity waiting somewhere in the past. It is an unfulfilled potential in the present. And potential has no expiration date. It only needs to be activated. However, what makes this quote profound is not just its simple optimism, but its acknowledgement that the process of becoming always comes with a sense of loss. We cannot change without looking back at the things that never came to pass. But instead of turning regret into a dead end, we can make it a starting point, a clearer awareness of what we truly value. Life is like a river with many branches. Just because you have sailed past one fork does not mean the entire current has ended. It simply means you are in a different position to begin adjusting your course. And sometimes it is the act of getting lost that helps us better understand the path we truly want to return to, or the new path we had never seen before. It is not about reverting to an old version, but continuing to grow from the present point with a new perspective. People do not need to erase their past to change. They just need to stop viewing the past as an absolute limit. Every passing day is not just a day lost. It is another day that you continue to exist, observe, choose, and adapt. And as long as the power of choice remains, the process of becoming is far from over. You don't need to become who you might have been in the old way. You just need to keep becoming, starting exactly from who you are today. The way I see it, if you want the rainbow, you gotta put up with the rain. Dolly Parton. Evading the rain in our lives, those periods of instability, failure, loss, or confusion. We are programmed to seek comfort and safety. But paradoxically, it is exactly within those uncomfortable conditions that a deeper awareness has the chance to form. If we only live under clear skies, we might be stable, but it is incredibly difficult to develop emotional depth. External hardships bring out internal states, doubt, pain, and a feeling of uncertainty about oneself. These are experiences that we usually want to eliminate as quickly as possible. But looking closer, they are not just problems to be solved, but environments meant to help us understand ourselves better. Life is like an ecosystem. If there is only endless sunshine, the soil will dry out, and life will lose its diversity. It is the rain that shifts structures, creates movement, and forces everything to adapt. Similarly, in our spiritual lives, those stormy phases force us to adjust how we see, how we feel, and how we exist. The rainbow does not appear to negate the rain. It appears because of the rain. This carries a crucial psychological meaning. The most beautiful things in human experience do not always come from avoiding suffering, but often from the ability to walk right through it. When we stop absolutely fighting against uncomfortable emotions, we begin to see the more subtle nuances of the experience itself. Acceptance is not surrendering, nor is it relishing in the pain. It is acknowledging its existence as a valid part of the journey. When we stop seeing the rain as wrong, we develop the capacity to observe it instead of merely reacting to it. And this very shift from reaction to observation is the starting point of inner maturity. Interestingly, the rainbow always coexists with the rain, but it only reveals itself when we stand at the right angle. This suggests another thought. Sometimes the good is not something created after the suffering, but something that is always present, yet can only be seen when we change our stance within our own experience. Be ready to walk through those unpleasant states, for it is exactly within them that the most beautiful and profound layers of life's meaning can finally reveal themselves.